Born Primitive Outdoor is proud to partner with Montana Knife Company, Marsupial Gear, Evolution Outdoors, Sheep Feet, and Capture Gear. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to our sponsors. Outdoor podcast. I'm just back from the wilderness, and I'm almost 50, and out of the blue got allergies. So I'm apologizing. I'm not sick. I sound like the snuffleupagus, but it is what it is at this point. So I'm pumping drugs into me like crazy. Either way, I have Joseph and Ross with Drifter Hydration on the podcast today. I don't know either of them really well, but I do like their product. I've been jacking around with it for the last couple months, so I wanted to bring them on, have them tell us a little bit about themselves, how the product kind of originated, got going. So I appreciate both of you guys coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Yeah. I can go first, kind of give you a little backstory on the product and the company. So it all started about in 2017. Ross and I, we were actually doing a hunt in Oklahoma, and we're talking about water, and we're talking about basically how the taste that come out of like traditional soft bladders is terrible, and we're just trying to come up with a better solution, because I mean, we like the convenience of having a hydration system, but the taste, the durability, and all that stuff was kind of not good for us. So we drew it up on paper, had no idea how to start the business or anything like that, and we actually sat on it for several years until 2021, I believe. We kind of just took the leap and started calling manufacturers and just trying to figure it out. And, fast forward several years later and lots of prototyping and developing, this is kind of where we landed.
Gotcha. So, and just so everybody's kind of on the same page, Joseph, you do more of the field testing, promotion, and Ross, you're kind of more on the back end operations, or how does that work?
Yeah, so Joe and I met when we were in the Coast Guard together. We're both originally from the West Coast and have done most of our hunting and stuff out there. And Joe's kind of a tinkerer and a gadget guy, and so he's a mechanic by trade and in the Coast Guard, and so he kind of has taken the lead on really all the product development and the testing and destroying things, trying to figure out how to make things better. And I've kind of taken the lead on the operation stuff and behind the scenes with the logistics and the business side.
Gotcha. So with getting it started, from coming out of your guys' brains and then execution was, and it, just so everybody understands, actually explain how the product works. Like you talked about soft-sided bladders. So you have platypus and source and whatever. With soft-sided bladders, they are handy, and I've used them off and on for years, but inevitably you're probably going to pop one, whether you drop your pack or wear a hole in it with something that's inside your pack. There's pros and cons. They do taste like shit. They're a little bit difficult to clean at times. So with the soft side bladders, that's what he's talking about. You guys came up with a hard sided bladder and a system. So you talked a little bit about the problems. Go into what you're offering, the pros and cons to it, some of the attachments and things like that with it.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a rigid reservoir, and neither one of us had like engineering degrees or anything like that. So I actually taught myself how to use CAD, just enough to be able to design the cap and the reservoir and present that to a manufacturer. And basically the idea behind it is it's a rigid reservoir that's pressurized. So you got a couple of tubes that go in. One is your pressure tube, and then the other is just a traditional drink tube. And on the drink tube, it's a co-extruded insulated drink tube, and it has an on-off valve. It has a quick connect on the mouthpiece itself. So that pops off, and you're able to either snap in a filter directly into it, which you can do a hang bag, you could do a traditional pump style filter, or you could just do a clean water bag with like a double quick connect on there and refill the system inside your pack without having to pull it out. The other option that we have too is, since it's pressurized, you can hook up a filter on the inside of the reservoir. So you just fill that up in the creek, and then the filter connects directly to the underside of the cap, and then you just pressurize it, and it forces all that dirty water directly through the filter and gives you clean water on the go. One thing that's cool about it too is we actually used all of the industry standard quick connects, so it's compatible with all the quick connects that MSR uses, Platypus, and all the different companies out there. So you can easily use whatever filter you want if it fits inside the reservoir, and you can connect it to the underside of the cap. We branded a filter that our manufacturer offered. It uses a pretty cool technology called the disruptor media. It's the cartridges are made by a company called Paragon down in Florida. So that's pretty much the only accessory that we didn't actually design, was the filter. It was just an option that they had available, and we wanted to offer it to people as a complete kit. And one thing that's cool about that filter is that it's technically a purifier, so it'll remove virus and everything else that the real popular hollow fiber membrane filters remove. It's just the biggest con to it is it's a little bit slower since it's a purification media. But yeah, a lot of cool options with the pressurized portion of it. My favorite thing is being able to fill your cook stove, fill water bottles, and we actually designed a small water bottle that's designed to fit in bear spray holsters. It fits in most of them. Just a really convenient size to be able to make supplements and refill it super easy. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the system. A rigid pressurized system that you don't have to remove from your pack to refill, with a lot of different filtration options.
So just so, I'll kind of walk through some of the things that, I noticed about the system. It does check a lot of boxes. It fixes a lot of issues. So you can run the filter inside, two different types of filters inside of the hard-sided bladder. So you can fill it up with dirty water, and then there's a pump, obviously, so it's pressurized, and that helps force some of the water. I say force, but make it a little bit easier time drinking through the hose, coming out of the hard-sided bladder. So you can do that, or you can run no filter at all inside of that. You can put clean water in, and then when you look, in my case, I do a lot of electrolyte type mix, whether that's like Dead Shot or Element or whatever. You can put that in that smaller water bottle that you guys have, so you aren't putting, making your bladder funky over time, basically. So you can pump that up, and it's really like a kind of like a water faucet. You just turn that on, and then you twist the valve to where it's basically free open. And then you can use that to fill up your cook stove, fill up that water bottle. And so your hard-sided bladder is basically like a faucet to fill up whatever you need. That hard-sided bladder is 3 liters, correct?
It's 2.5 liters. Yeah.
2.5. Okay. And you could just as easily, if you wanted to use that, you could use aqua tabs and throw them in there if you didn't want to mess with any kind of a filter. With the filters that you offer, one of them is the one that I'm a little more cautious about, which is the hollow fiber filter, the one with a bunch of straws in it. And everybody's using that technology, and that is definitely the in thing. But you guys also incorporate those filters that you offer in basically a gravity filter system. So you have 2 bladders, they're 2 liters. And one of the things that I've been doing, not just using the hard-sided system, but also I just keep that bladder with the hollow fiber filter in a pocket on my pack. So if I need water quickly and I want to just not mess with anything other than fill a water bottle, I can just fill that up. Run it as a gravity filter. It's very lightweight, and fill up my water bottle, if needed. I mean, I could do that. So like this last trip, I didn't bring I'm kind of jacking around with everything. I didn't bring the hard-sided water bladder, mostly just because of the hand I've been dealt with where I was going. I knew that it was going to be kind of a different situation. And plus I just like screwing around with stuff to see what fits and when. And so what I did is just had a water bottle going in and then a big bladder on the inside of my pack. And what I would do is just use that Drifter system you have to fill up my water bottle, so I didn't have to mess around with the 30 minutes for Aquatabs or the 90 seconds for the Sterapin. And I would just fill up the water bottle that way. So your system is very versatile is what I'm getting at, I guess. And if you guys want to kind of take it from there.
Yeah, that was one of the, when we were kind of drawing this up, we've hunted all over the country and with people from every walk of life, and everybody's kind of got their own way of doing things. And when we drew this up, we wanted to make sure that we drew it up to where it was, kind of a modular system where people can plug and play and configure it to use in different situations, how they want, and be able to be used by anybody really in any environment. And so it was really important to us to make this thing easy, that you can use it however works best for, your operation.
Right. And again, like with everything that I do is a little bit unique at times compared to, when I say unique, I'm very fortunate I get to go all over the place. So sometimes that, like for day hunting, I don't feel there's one system that is perfect for every situation. You guys offer enough different options that you definitely will hit that. For day hunting, that hard-sided bladder is pretty dang hard to beat. Running and gunning, just stop, whether it's super dirty water, whatever, you can just fill it up and drink freely, not have to mess with anything. There's other times where, I will, and a lot of it depends on how much water is in the area. If there's not that much water in the area, there are times that it's going to be more difficult to use one system compared to another. And when I say that, meaning when you can fill your water up all the time, and in certain places in the world you can do that, it's pretty handy to have that hard-sided bladder, right? Because you can just stop, fill it up quickly, no problem. Other times where you're literally searching for water all of the time, sometimes a different system may work a little bit better. Now, with what you guys offer right now, out of the two filtration systems, or the two inlines, I guess you could say, what are the pros and cons of those, from the hollow fiber filter and then the one that you guys came up with?
Yeah, so the hollow fiber filter that we're using is we partnered with Katadyn for using their bee-free water filter, and that one, because of the thread size, it's your standard 42 millimeter thread. It doesn't fit inside the reservoir. So we use that just for backfeed filtration. So you just take a soft bag, fill that up, and then that snaps into the drink tube and fills your reservoir while the reservoir stays in your pack. The cons to that is, with all hollow fiber membrane filters, doesn't matter the brand, you can't let those freeze. Otherwise it can rupture the membrane, and then they're basically useless. So the caution to people in any type of hollow fiber filter is make sure you sleep with it and keep it in your pocket if it's cold outside. And then you obviously can't use that one internally. So those are the biggest cons to the hollow fiber membrane filter, the Katadyn bee-free. It is really fast for backfeed filtration, which is really nice, especially if you have a bunch of weight on your pack and meat and everything else, and all your straps super tight. You can just fill up the soft bag and attach the filter directly to the drink tube and refill your reservoir in your pack. And you don't have to pull your whole pack apart and unsituate your load to do that. The other filter, which is the Drifter mini filter, like I said, that one's technically a purifier. And the cons to that really is just the speed of it, and then the filter life. It's rated for about 200 gallons before it's reduced to a 50% flow rate. And it takes about 4 times as long to gravity filter water versus the Katadyn bee-free. What is nice about it, though, is you can attach it internally, and like you were talking about, you can just pull the rigid reservoir out of your pack, fill it up if you have flowing water, or a pool deep enough to be able to fill the reservoir, and then you just put it back together and pressurize it, and then it forces the water through the filter. So the biggest cons to the Drifter mini filter is speed and lifespan. And I would say the biggest cons to the Catadyne B3 would be you can't. It's more cautious to use it in freezing temperatures, and then you can't use that one internally.
Yeah, the when Joe's talking about speed, both of them are still extremely fast, though. I mean, with that Catadyne filter, you can do 2.5 liters of water in less than 2 minutes. And then with the Drifter filter, it's going to take you 9 to 11 minutes. So, by the time you sit down and have a sandwich, you can still filter 2.5 liters of water with the Drifter filter. So, it's just really being the fact that the Drifter filter will filter out so much more stuff. That filter we primarily, used for a lot of guys that are doing international travel. We've sent that filter with groups that have gone to several overseas countries where they can't drink water out of anything. And I've had feedback from 3 different groups that have went to overseas countries, and they have, and they came back and they said, nobody got sick on this trip. We've got to figure out a way to get more of these things overseas. And so people are really, really liking that filter because of how much stuff it filters out, even though it takes, 9-10 minutes to filter 2.5 liters of water.
Yeah. And I think that's where kind of what I was talking about, when you do, go, you kind of need a system that you have. There's just not one do-all system. And again, I always carry aqua tabs, MSR aqua tabs, as a backup, no matter what I do. And that doesn't matter whether I'm using your hard-sided bladder or I'm using a water bottle or whatever. They do leave a taste in the water. It does taste not great. When I say that, you're going to know you put some shit in your water when you use those aqua tabs. You can get used to that, but it's not, perfect. But it is handy to have them. And so I think like total weight, that's something that was asked of me. If you take the system that I was using, which is a water, like a 6-liter Sea to Summit bladder and a nalgene bottle, and when there's pros and cons to that. One, if you have the water bottle, it is hanging off the side of your belt, which can be kind of uncomfortable at times. It just, you got to, whatever 1 liter weighs 3 pounds or 2.5 pounds or whatever it is, it's hanging off your belt. So that can be a problem. After that, after the weight, it's really not that big of a deal. You can clean it, you can put drink mix in there, but you only get 32 ounces. So that can be kind of a problem. When you look at something like with the Drifter and the filter, the inline filters, what weight, how much weight are you gaining using your system? Are you gaining any weight at all in comparisons to other systems out there?
Yeah. So, your standard soft bladder weighs anywhere from 5 to 9 ounces. So comparing that to just the Drifter system, you're looking at around 15 ounces. You're just not getting the durability, the pressurized portion of it, and obviously the taste and the ability to clean it. And I mean, with our system, you can just leave water in it for extended periods of time and it doesn't get bad. So if you're carrying a filter, like a pump filter, because that's the only realistic option you have to be able to put water into a soft bladder, it's going to be one of those pump type filters. And those run, I think, around 12, 14 ounces just for the pump itself. And even with a soft bladder, you're not going to be able to, if you've got a lot of weight on your back with those pumps, you're not really going to be able to pump back in if you've got meat on your back and everything tied down super tight. So we've had a couple of guys that are soft bladder, Catadyne or MSR pump. That's what they used to run. And that was actually about 2 ounces more than running a Drifter plus a filter. Or like you're saying, if you're running an nalgene bottle, like the 48 ounce ones or the 32, I think the 48 ounce bottles are around 7 ounces just for the bottle itself. But then you only have 48 ounces. So you're looking at, with the Drifter system, you're looking at over 66% more capacity for, just a few more ounces. So you can plug and play pretty much anything. And if you're ultralight minimalist, sure, there's ultralight ways to go about it, but kind of what we offer is more efficiency and durability and just overall taste and everything. So It seems to be pretty comparable if you're trying to have a lot of the features to be able to stay on the go and keep your filtration system efficient.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I weighed all this stuff already when I was screwing around, with it. And I got a video that we'll have on YouTube here soon. But the thing is I don't really, the ultra lightweight systems are not anything I'm a really big fan of. And I think anybody that uses just a hollow fiber filter for everything is probably going to get the shits eventually. If you're using it in multiple different environments and conditions and weather and everything else. I don't think they're a bad thing to have for certain situations, for sure. Like right now, it's 90 degrees already at my house. I just came out of the wilderness with my girlfriend, wasn't worried about anything freezing. But you got to pay the tollman somewhere. And when I said like your system checks a lot of boxes, it is very handy for the durability side. That's a big, you always hear horror stories of bladders breaking, but I don't think that you're smart to have just one way to carry water, meaning there's no way in hell on anything serious I would have just your hard-sided bladder, even though it's pretty much bulletproof. And that is the one water bladder that I would say you could trust to use by itself. But I would also have something else like your small water bottle, because I like to make the drink mixes, pre-workout, whatever. I like all that. I'll even put coffee or tea in that thing and use that as my kind of sole, I don't want to say, I guess, ancillary, but my sole water bottle type thing. I won't bring a coffee cup or anything else. I'll just put everything in there. I don't worry about that. It's easy to clean. Same goes for your filtration system. I wouldn't just have a Sterapin. I wouldn't just have, even though I've done it a lot of times, just aqua tabs. Because especially if you're not down with having little Squidwards swimming around in your water, just aqua tabs are not overly appealing to everyone, because one, you're gonna have shit float in your water. There's no way you're getting around that. Two, it does taste like shit, right? I'm used to it, but it's not a great system. It's just a good backup, right? I have used it for my primary for a long time, but nothing like handing your water bottle and Squidwards are swimming around in your shit and your buddy looks at you like, I'm not drinking that. And that happens frequently when you're just filling up a bladder. I'm sure you guys know that as well as I do. So I think that if someone was looking at buying a water filtration water container system, it's pretty hard for me not to point them towards you guys, for the simple fact of, if you buy, what is the entire system? I bought, it was like 200 and something for everything, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we offer everything individually, or you can buy the complete system and then you can choose what filter option you want. And that comes in at $185 right now. And that comes with the rigid reservoir with both the tubes. So the regular hydration system, one of the 2.5 liter or 2.2 liter soft bags, a filter, and then the drink tube extension, which we haven't even talked about. Yeah. And it comes with a small water bottle, one of the Drifter mini mixers.
Yeah. And so when you look at this, I'm going to run through scenarios for people, like, should I get this? Should I not? You're just going on an elk hunt, right? You're going 2 to 3 miles in. There's obviously going to be water there somewhere, because elk have to have water, but it's not always the cleanest of water. So if it's an area that's got creeks flowing fairly frequently, where you're going to run them throughout the course of the day, I personally like, even though the shelf life on your inline, the Drifter, like whatever filter, isn't as long, having an extra one of those in your pack isn't the end of the world, to me, if you're pushing the limits of it, meaning you're too chicken to change it out because you're a tight ass and you want to milk it for all it's worth, throw an extra one in there. If need be, it's not a big deal. So you just stop throughout the course of the day, fill it up, and you've got the filter inside of the rigid bladder, and you're good. You drink all day, and then you've got your little water bottle occasionally you need to fill up. That's easy. Okay. So now we go to 13,000 feet for mountain goat or sheep. There's hardly water, anywhere. That is where I would strongly suggest to either use a large bladder or use the two of your bladders, and not necessarily use them for a inline gravity type filter. that's just another spot to keep more water, right? You could use it for a gravity type filter where you're using that inline catadin. But I personally wouldn't do that because at this point, I don't really care. I'm just happy to have water. And so you're going to need every bit of water you can. So I would fill those up just to hold water, myself. Yep. And you guys go ahead and take it from here. I mean, is this stuff you've gone over in videos? Do you get these questions asked from people?
Yeah. So like our typical loadout, if we're going to be going on a multi-day backcountry trip, I like to carry 2 of the soft bags, and then the rigid system. And then I also carry aqua tabs always. They're in my emergency kit. But I carry both filters. So I'll bring the Catadine B-free filter as my primary means of regular filtration. And then I carry the Drifter mini filter because those things only weigh 1.4 ounces when they're new and dry. So it's nothing to just throw that in your kit. Worst case scenario, something happens to the Catadine. I have the Drifter that I can use, and then obviously aqua tabs. But with 2 transporter water bags and the Drifter Lite Hydration System, you're looking at, it's 4.5 plus 2.5. So you're looking at 7 liters of water plus the 16-ounce mini mixer bottle. And you can obviously always supplement. You're on a hunt where, like you're saying, at 13,000 feet or down in the desert or even parts of California where you don't have a lot of water and you have to pack, over a gallon of water, maybe even sometimes 2 gallons of water. I just supplement more of the soft bags and I just start shoving those in the top of my pack, just as much water as I need. So that's pretty much what we let people know is like, hey, if you know that you're in an area that you're very low on water, then just pick up a couple extra soft bags and sometimes you just have to pack in lots of water, and that's just the name of the game.
Yeah. And I think that, in your backpack hunting career, right, as you move forward, I used to carry a pump pretty all the time. And, I am not a fan of pumps. I don't bring a pump anywhere, and I haven't for a long time, long time. I don't like packing around water pumps. It literally feels like I'm packing around this worthless piece of gear for no real reason because there's so many other options. So with the pumps, when people ask me what pump to bring, I'm very quick to say, don't bring a fucking pump. Like, I hate water pumps and cross-contamination. There's a lot of issues with those, everything else. So, with the just needing water, like you said, those bladders are not very heavy. That extra, filter you said is 1.5 ounces when it's dry. Plus you have aqua tabs. You can throw those in if you need. And so again, as far as a one do-all system, it's pretty hard to, to beat what you guys are offering. Again, knowing when to use what at what time is going to be the biggest, probably, decision-making and then learning experience for everyone. Because I really like that rigid bladder for, I would say 75% of what I'm doing. It works extremely well. When you have to add extra bladders when you're in an area that doesn't have that much, not that much water. And when I say that, not necessarily throughout the course of the day, because you've got your rigid bladder in your pack. What it is when you come back to camp, if you need to boil water for food or coffee, and then when you take off again the next day, if water isn't close and you're not going to run into it a while, you just need a backup, for that. So, before, I guess you had brought up a couple other things before I keep rambling on. When you had talked about like the extension for the hose or whatever, talk about some of those things before I move forward.
Yeah. So the drink tube extension is just a 11-inch extension. Anybody that's killed anything and you got a bladder in your pack, that it pushes everything back, and then your drink tube is no longer accessible, or you got to turn your head or put your mouth down in your armpit trying to pull that tube through. So what that does is it just snaps in directly in line on the drink tube. So when all your gear is pushed back behind your meat, it gives you the ability to have access to your drink tube when you need it the most, when you're huffing and puffing. Something we haven't really talked about either, I don't think, when it comes to the pressure, is one of the best pieces of feedback we've got is guys talking about when you're huffing and puffing, climbing up the mountain, and you don't have to suck to drink. They're like, this was an unseen, benefit by far. This, not having to stop breathing, it just forces water in your mouth, and it is pretty crazy. It's kind of a pro and a con, because you got to be careful, because you'll actually drink a lot more water with this system, which is a pro. But if you're trying to ration, you just need to be a little more cognizant, because it's a full flow of water. You don't have to work for it at all. So it's it was good.
Yeah, it does make a big deal.
One thing I wanted to add is, Aaron, you keep talking, about mentioning backups and things changing, and you may need this for that. And one of the things, Joe and I both come from worlds where redundancy is built into everything. From the time we were in the Coast Guard, the way that you do things, to what I do, outside of the drifter stuff, I do a lot of flying. I'm a professional pilot as well, and so there's redundancy built in everything. And so when we designed this system, and we wanted to make sure that there was redundancy, there was backups, basically, and other options. So you're talking about, you get in these backcountry environments, and you may study maps and think you're going to have water in this area, or think it's going to look like this, or your water quality will be pretty good, and then you get there and you realize it's not what you expected. By carrying both filter types, it gives you that option. And sometimes the catadine's not going to work for you, or maybe you do like the catadine for backfeeding, or whatever the case may be, and you end up having a problem with that filter. With the Drifter mini filter, it kind of serves as a backup, because you can run it inline and backfeed through the drink tube into your reservoir, or you can, like we talked about, drop it into that rigid bladder, that rigid reservoir, and run it that way. So it gives you options to where if you do you are in the backcountry and you have a problem, you still have another way to filter water and to get clean drinking water. So we really felt like that redundancy and having that ability to kind of back up your system is important. And so that was another reason why we kind of set things up the way we did.
Yeah, no, and that makes total sense. I think the only thing I would say to add for any system you're using, and even this one, just make sure and add aqua tabs as a backup.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and again, don't yell at me that they taste like shit. I've already warned you. They're not, it's going to taste a little funny when you drink the water, but it's always good to, to have those. And when I say that, meaning if I head into a 10 to 12 day hunt and we'll just say, the drifter filtration system clogs up on me, it's not that big of a deal. I just swap out the hoses inside of it, and I'll just throw aqua tabs in there. It's not the end of the world if excuse me, that happens if you've got those aqua tabs. Is there anything you guys are looking at changing or adding to that you can bring up, or is mum's the word? I should have asked you that before we started the podcast, but is there anything you guys are looking like adding to the system as time goes on?
We talked about doing like a larger base camp system, so that's something that we would like to do. We obviously just started sales of the main system back in September, so we're still really early on in this thing and just trying to get off the ground. But we do have a lot of cool ideas. I would love to design my own filter that solves a lot of these problems. Cold weather and silt is another big thing that a lot of people don't really talk about. Like when you're in Alaska and Canada and you get a silty river, man, the silt is one of the worst things for those filters. So I've got a few ideas in the works right now. It's just getting what we have right now going before we can really add a whole lot. We also talked about essentially making another reservoir that's a little bit larger. So just some things that we're looking at in the future. We definitely have some stuff in the works. We're just trying to get really off the ground first.
So speaking of getting off the ground, has this gone better or worse, or about like you figured getting a company off the ground?
I would say, I think it's gone better. We really felt strong about the product. So when we spent a lot of time developing it and running it ourselves before we even offered it. And so we felt really, really good about it. We've got great feedback from it. So none of that, was a giant surprise. But this is the first time Joe and I have started a business, and it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride, with some ups and downs. We went to our first trade show, and we went to Salt Lake to the Hunt Expo, and super excited, brought an enclosed trailer with us full of product, had a great booth designed and set up. And the night before the show was supposed to start, we were going to go in there that morning and set up our booth and get everything ready to go. I walked out to the trailer, and the locks had been cut, and we ended up losing a bunch of our product. They took as much as they could load up in a car. And so there's been some ups and downs and some learning that goes with that. But as far as the starting the business, it's more of been the learning the business side, but it's gone really well. I've been very, very, very happy with how things have been going, and it's been exciting to see. And we love getting pictures and feedback from people when they take the system out and send us pictures of them using it in the field. And one of my favorite stories was we sold a system to a guy that was going on an elk hunt last year in Colorado. And he told me he was going with this other guy and told me what they had been previously running. And I said, well, I should send him our way and we'll get him set up. And he said, no. He said, I want to show him this when I get up there. And so he ended up sending us a picture from the mountain where he's got the system back feeding into his pack, and he's sitting there eating a sandwich and his pack's totally loaded down, while his buddy's got his pack torn apart in the background and trying to pump water. And his buddy ended up ordering a system from his phone from the mountain because he looked over and said, what the heck is this? What are you running? And he ran him through the system, and the guy bought one from the mountain. And so getting stories like that and seeing it in use has been awesome. And I, it's getting the business off the ground is, it's come with some challenges of starting any new business and trying to increase the visibility. But as far as the feedback and stuff has been great.
Yeah. I honestly didn't know what to expect because, like Ross said, neither one of us have a business degree. Ross might be working on that now, but I didn't know what to expect. I'm actually still active duty. I've got one more after this, and then I'll be done, and then hopefully be doing drifter things 100% with my time. But not knowing what to expect, I think the hardest part has been just getting it out there in front of people. Like when you don't have a big marketing budget or something like that, it's definitely proving to be, I guess probably what I expected, but that's been the biggest challenge, just getting it out in front of people and explaining something that hasn't ever been, made before. It's not like we just took something that already existed and put our spin on it. We came up with a completely different system. So kind of winning people over that are skeptical of like, well, how come this has never been done before? That's been kind of my fun challenge is seeing people's minds and their faces change when we show them the system. Especially at the expos or the shows that we did, people would be kind of walking by and like, what the heck is this? And we'd show it to them and they'd kind of come in with arms crossed and all skeptical. And by the end of it, they're just asking questions and just shaking their head like, man, where was this 20 years ago? That's been probably the coolest part, is actually solving problems that people didn't realize they had until they used the system. And another thing that's really cool is we've had a lot of people. It's been the people that are skeptical, but they take the leap. They're like, man, I really hope this does what I think it does and what you guys say it's going to do. Those are the guys that call us back and we're like, this thing is freaking amazing. Like, great job. I'm going to show all my buddies. That's been super rewarding. And honestly, we started this whole thing because A, Ross didn't drink enough water. So this was my way to get him to drink more water. And B, is because we wanted this system for ourselves. And we figured some other people probably would too.
Yeah, no, like I said, it checks a lot of boxes, and I've been excited to use it and test, screw around with it in the field. It's definitely something I'm going to use. So I really can't recommend it enough to, people reaching out to me just because of the different nightmares of running soft-sided bladders and having them blow up and everything else. And you can get some durable soft-sided bladders, but they're not, by the time it's said and done, they're about the same weight anyway, and you can't drink out of a lot of them. So that causes a big problem as well. And you certainly can't pressurize them. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you remember, there was another system back in the day that you could pump up and a lot of them blew up in people's packs. It was when I first saw it. This was 2013 or 12, maybe. And me being the skeptic I am, I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm going to be putting that in my pack and pumping it like a, well, I'm not going to say it. I'm like, that thing's going to blow up. And man, the amount of, that was like the cool thing to have. And then the amount of people blowing them up in their pack from overpressurization was high. So you definitely fixed that.
Yeah. And that's something that we haven't found the limit to it yet. I've taken the hand pump to complete failure, and failure on it is, it pushes back through the silicone check valve on the air pump itself. And then you can't put any more air into it. And that's around 13 PSI. And our recommended PSI is around 6 to 7 PSI. And that's because that's when your little bite valve will start leaking. You obviously have the on off valve, so you can pressurize it a lot more past that. But 7 PSI on water that's a lot of pressure. And I've pumped it all the way up and then got it to around 13 plus PSI on there. And then I've jumped on the thing myself, and then I ran it over with the 4-wheeler as well. So I am actually curious if something we're going to do in the future is actually hook it up to an air compressor with a pressure gauge and see when these reservoirs actually explode. But it was sketchy enough at 13 PSI. and I'm actually still using that reservoir today, the one that I've torture tested. So.
Yeah, no, I tried to blow it up and I couldn't get it to, I mean, it just kind of swells a little. It doesn't, it doesn't distort its shape or whatever, I guess you could say. But, well, what's your website? Where can they find info on this? YouTube, Instagram, and then the website.
Yeah, we're at drifterhydration.com, and then it's drifter_hydration on Instagram, and then just Drifter Hydration on YouTube. And we put all of our instructions on YouTube. So there is information on some of the packaging cards, but we did all of our instructional videos on YouTube. So people can go check that out if they've got any questions on the different types of filter configurations and all the different features. We put up some tips and tricks videos on YouTube as well when we start learning new things about the system, or we get feedback from our customers and they come back and say, hey, I just used it for this, and we're like, I didn't even see that one, and so we try to put up some more stuff on there as we figure out more ways and better ways to use the system as well.
Gotcha. Well, cool. Well, fellas, I appreciate you hopping on the podcast. I didn't think we could make it 45 minutes talking about water system, but we did it. So no, I really like the system. I definitely suggest everyone check it out. I think it can be very useful for just about anyone, no matter where you're hunting, whether that be whitetail, in the Midwest, or mountain hunting for, goats or sheep. It's very, very versatile. So, I appreciate you guys hopping on and, getting a product out there on the market like you did.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Aaron. This has been great. We appreciate it.
No, of course.
Yep. Thanks, Aaron.
Yep. You guys have a good day. And when this comes out, my IT guy will get a hold of you, get some photos and things like that, for it. And then anybody has any questions on this, obviously you can get a hold of these guys. If you have any questions for me, feel free to shoot me a message on social on this system, and I can explain at least the way I use it, what I like about it, if we didn't cover it in this podcast. So you guys have a good day, and I appreciate everybody tuning in.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it.